approval of, technically it's March's minutes, although they were approved prior to the interruption of the April meeting. March minutes were approved, and so there was technically no April minutes because the meeting was terminated early. So we're going to move to number 3, to the chairman's report, and we'll start with the David Gentili Memorial. I know that was a topic that was discussed in April at the April meeting. Sandy McGuire is here. Sandy is the one who presented at the April meeting. And Sandy, do you want to just take a couple minutes just for anybody that maybe wasn't here, just to refresh our memory on what the request was for David Gentili?
Yes.
In just a minute or two.
For those of you who probably, this is a picture of David. David was about 15, I guess, when he was playing football. You all heard the story. You know what happened.
Yeah, I think everybody, we were all
here.
here.
You were all here, so you know this. Right. When this happened, the David Day raised over $531,000 towards the care of David. When David died, his dad, his mom and dad, turned all of these funds back over to the township. So these funds went into the coffers. I don't know, I guess how it came about, but the skateboard park. They gave the skateboard park, you know the story, came down. I just think, basically, David raised $531,000 for the township, and I just think there should be this memorial to his life here in town. And I would like, well, Teresa is the one who suggested this. She and I sat down and we discussed it, and she came up with the idea of perhaps the park would be a good idea to name the park. There's been, as I understand, some scuttlebutt. Someone went to council recently and said, well, I don't understand why a park should be named after this boy. I don't think the person that said it was really aware of the history. They cited Fullerton Park. Well, they thought he was in the armed forces. Well, he wasn't. He was a policeman, and we all know that. So I think that aside, there shouldn't be any obstacles to council approving this. I've spoken to Greg Newcomer. He loves the idea, as I think all of the other members of council do. So it's just a matter of having them approve it. And I had another idea when Greg gave me this layout of the park. This is Maple Avenue, here, Maple Avenue, the tennis courts. Well, there's this little piece that, if you've ever been to the park, kind of cuts through back here near Walker Street. And I had this brainstorm. I thought maybe we could separate the two and let the people in that area have this as their park. I spoke to Shirley Armstead at Armstead's wife. Well, Teresa said that we can't do that because it's part of Green Acres. So it has to stay as one. But where it stands right now is we're just waiting for council to approve it, and then we can move forward. Let me just share with you, I had dinner with Mrs. Gentili Taylor now last Thursday, and she is just really, really pleased about this. You know, she was very firm about 2 points. She did not want the football team there. She didn't want a big thing made of this with the football team. And I think it's inappropriate since David got hurt playing football. I don't think we should have a football team there. That's my personal feeling. As I said before, I don't think anyone should play football. other part Joan was very adamant about, she said she did not want any fundraisers to raise money for signage or a memorial plaque. She said if they were not funds coming forth from the township for that, she would donate it. I said, no, you know, they've done enough. I think the township can afford a plaque. She didn't want a big fountain. She just wants it done quietly. And I'd like to know how you people feel about it.
Thank you. Well, I have some thoughts on the park itself. As Sandy mentioned, there are some folks that have some concern about who the parks are named after and what precedence has been set and what policies are in place. I don't know if there are any. There seems to be a trend aside from Frank Fullerton, but all the other ones tend to have some military significance. I don't think we're in a position to say whether it's appropriate for the park to be named after David or not. It's my opinion. I think that that's something that council will have to decide, and they'll have to. I think it would be in their best interest as council, as there's a new building going up, there's the sports teams are looking to get corporate sponsors of fields and those things to start to put some policies in place. And whether they take somebody from Rec Advisory and the Appearance Committee and the Ethics Committee and some other committees to form a smaller committee to put policies in place, that would be my recommendation, because this committee could continue to get solicited for this type of stuff, and if there's no sort of policies or in place, criteria in place, then I think we could set ourselves up for some future challenges. That's not to say I don't think that this isn't a worthy cause and it shouldn't be considered, but I'm not comfortable making that recommendation for a full park to be named after David. I know in my experience with the towns, with the fields and the parks, with naming rights, I know we talked about Fullerton, we talked about getting the sponsor for the entire playground, and it would be just like at Wesley Bishop, there's the TD Bank playground, kids corner at Wesley Bishop Park. So maybe a recommendation could be the David Gentili tennis courts, as we saw in one of the pictures that Sandy brought. He took tennis lessons at those courts, so maybe it's the David Gentili tennis courts at Maple Dawson Park to be maybe that park to be named later. There are a lot of people that get injured and pass away in our town, and so I think it's very difficult for us to, the first person that comes to mind recently is Sean Fisher and Harry Coons, and people who have done a lot in our town or that were young and died of disease, and I think it would be difficult for us to set a precedence for Rec Advisory. That's my opinion. I don't know how anybody else feels.
That's what my objection was last, that if he had a skate park named that one portion of West Michigan Park, which is a skate park. It sounds to us like the whole park. And just like you said, you got the tennis court, you got the basketball court, you got this, you got that. And this is the same with Fullerton. You got Fullerton Park, it's a park. You also have tennis courts. You got the kids, they just didn't want to go away.
Right.
And then whatever else, Teresa or the township wants to put up there. I don't think they put down basketball.
Yes.
So we need to put something else up there.
What I put down now,
Sorry.
Oh, is that what you said?
Fullerton.
Say that. No. I kind of, I mean, like, when I first heard I had one, and then the more I thought of it, I kind of agree with Keith. I think sometimes what I've seen over the years in the town, that sometimes we jump at something that sounds like a good idea, and we don't know what the future's gonna hold, and there could be somebody else, or there could be something, and then time goes on, and people don't even know who the person is, and so I think sometimes I agree that we have to be careful. And just as we're talking, I'm thinking to myself, like, what would be wrong with, like a bench, an area of a bench, and a plaque on the bench that says somebody's, name, rather than, again, an entire park. And not by any means diminishing from David and what David, I happen to have known him, I live down the street, I know Joan. But I don't know if a whole park, and especially when what Keith is saying, I even know in the school system, how it seems like this is going to be the future of fundraising, where you're going to give money, you can get a plaque here, suppose you can have a plaque put in our classrooms, for $500 that have your name on it. And so it just might be more difficult than what we think, to have a whole park named for somebody, that maybe it makes more sense to a corner or, a garden or something like that. And then, it's something that I think is important, that something is said or that something is there, so as time goes on, people can read it, that there's some value to it. Otherwise, no one even knows. And just what Sandy was saying about football, I know that just a little bit when I was talking to some people, that the football people said that, they would love to come to something that was a dedication, because they feel in a positive alliance, to David, because he loved the sport. Yes, he got injured in the sport, but he loved the sport. And so I think it's bigger than, it's a bigger picture.
And I think that going to Keith's point, it's not really about us in
No.
policy, right? So we should, if we make it a recommendation,
Then they
they can decide, whether it's, we think it should be the tennis court, or the basketball court, or a portion of it, and then they decide whether it's the park, or, because we shouldn't set a policy.
So, go
But
ahead.
I was going to say, this brings up a good opportunity for us as committee. Obviously, this is going to be an issue, right? And we are the next committee, can come up with recommendations. I think this is a good opportunity. We can sit down and start working together and hash it out. And pass on as a recommendation to council. How many parks are available for future moving, how many portions, how many sections? So we at least understand what can we do for, say there's another
So it sounds as,
Oh,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I
Go
just
ahead.
have a little bit different aspect. We don't have a process, so the way I kind of feel like you might be grandfathered. Just from everything I've been hearing about, one of my friends was one of the nurses for him. It just seemed like the history at that time was so large, was so important. So I would be like, go for it, we suggested the park in the beginning, and things always work themselves out. Again, we don't have a process. Once we get a process, then everything coming after that, now it's fine. Fullerton might not have made it if we had that process in place. Maybe they said it was already military, maybe they had to meet this criteria. He was a young gentleman who really brought the town together from what I hear was here at that point, and he got injured at the high school, which would separate him from professional arts or something who had natural illness. So that's where we don't, and remember, we have Pershing Field, Pershing Forest Guy's place. I don't know how that name got through, but it did because there's no
But
process.
again, I don't think that's, I guess my two recommendations that I would feel comfortable, I'm supporting that he should have some sort of
But
recognition.
he does, he has two ambulances or something, where does he have his two?
May I? Excuse me, may I?
Let us, yeah, just hold on one second. Go
He
ahead.
has two, what are the two things he has in the last meeting? Actually, I think you guys mentioned.
One ambulance with the little gold plaque.
So he-
Right.
Right,
But that's what I'm saying. I think, so the skate park is gone, and I think
you're
that,
replacing it, you're thinking the
but
park
doing
is too
something
big of a
like
replacement?
the naming of an entire park, I don't think we should make that such a, I think he should be remembered, and there should be something that is done to remember him. But with that, I think we make recommendation to council that there needs to be criteria and
Oh,
policies
that's
put in
fine,
place
going
moving
forward.
forward, because it appears that this seems to be
But
what's
this
starting to
won't be
come down.
grandfathered.
But I don't know about,
Well,
Because there is no process.
first off, we're not the decision maker.
right,
Okay, it's council that makes the decision, as I said last month. We can make a recommendation, a suggestion, and ultimately it's council that will act on this. Truly, I think I think we came into this a little bit caught off guard last month because we didn't know that this issue was coming up. We knew that the issue of finding a replacement recognition in lieu of the skateboard park being removed was something that was on the agenda, and that the promise was made that it would be something, and the exact words that were said by the mayor in the press was, we're not just talking about a bench, we're talking about a significant acknowledgement of David Gentile. So that's already been put out there, that council has gone on record by saying they wanted a more significant acknowledgement than that. I'm mindful of, and I'm listening to the other positions here. I did come into the meeting prepared to say, I support the idea, and I think it's a good idea. For reasons that were mentioned here, one of which is the largesse of the contribution that was made to the town was significant at that time, and the fact that it was a rallying point in the history of the town behind a young man who was injured doing an athletic event in the town's name, so I think it's I just came prepared to do it. I think there's some valid points that were raised tonight. I didn't think it was going to require this much consideration, but I do understand the concern. I think, parks have lasted for a very long time before a significant naming event occurs. Maple Dawson has been a park in this town for 40 years or more, 50 years, without there being a significant reason to rename it. This may be the significant reason to rename it. Hopefully we don't lose another Morristown resident to a police or military event in the future, and that we wouldn't even have to discuss what could we name in their honor. But that may or may not occur. I don't think there's any criteria or any precedent that gives us guidance, because I think we've kind of moved with the tragedies as they've occurred. When Jeff Young passed, as I understood it, and people were moved in town, and they said, how do we recognize Jeff Young and his family? And then that decision was made. When Mr. Fullerton, also Fullerton, was killed in action, town said, how do we recognize it? I think we're presented with another opportunity to say, how do we recognize this young man in a meaningful way, who he and his family contributed to the town. Again, I could go either way on this. I don't care. It's ultimately council's decision, and God bless that it's their decision.
And then I agree. That's how
if I had to vote or make a motion, I would just say that we are prepared to support whichever direction council goes in their deliberations on what they want to do. And maybe the council does take some time out for a month or two and decide to answer the question of what's the criteria for parking and how do we want to handle this going forward. Or they may say, you know what, we're prepared to deal with it right away, and that's up to them.
Is there an alternate name that could be kicked around that recognizes residents like David when they're, without specifically naming the park? Like, I know the bridge out on Westfield Road is, what that's named, just, isn't that a bridge of remembrance or?
Yes,
Yeah,
there's several plaques.
yeah, I mean, is there,
Kids,
Is there-
teenagers been killed.
so I'm just curious if there's an alternative besides full naming of a park after him or not. Is there an alternative?
Yeah, the alternative is to name the section of the park, like the tennis court or the basketball court. That way you still have an option if somebody else passes or does something really great in town. You got something else you can,
Well,
name them for.
by the way,
Instead of just completely changing the name of a park.
and this may, And I'm not saying your point is invalid or wrong. I'm not saying I disagree with you. I understand what you're saying. And I guess there's some sensitivity on the family's behalf as to how this is handled, and I think they sound like, his mother sounds like a wonderful, humble person who's thoughtful. You know, if it was me and given the circumstances, I'd actually make the motion, the recommendation that we rename the turf football field
I don't think the
Gentile
town-
Field.
I don't think the
But I
town-
think that's
Yeah,
what I've heard,
that's
that
what
the family is
She wouldn't want that.
is not interested in that, because that's out Wesley Bishop, it's 50 yards from where the skateboard park was.
Has the school weighed in with anything they would consider?
They would consider, by the way, I've talked to the varsity football coach, and Bo Sherry, and Bo was approached by the Football Association, who was aware that this was in the discussion, and said that he is very supportive of having a remembrance and an event at one of the Friday night games at halftime, to recognize, and if the park was going forward, to, you know, basically do that at the halftime of the game, and to,
That would be appropriate.
yeah, no, I think that would be appropriate, to educate the
Well,
current high school football
yes.
players as to who
I
he
mean,
was.
just
Or
and-
even have, or even
mention,
have a
not a-
game, of a specific game?
And he would do that, he would have what they had discussed with the Youth Football Association
Yeah.
was a David Gentile night for football, for one of the football games. And he had just approached me last week, and he said, has anything happened? I said, well, there is a rec advisory meeting next week, and I'm sure it's going to be discussed at that point. He said, let me know, because I'm definitely prepared, and the Football Association remains prepared, and we'd like to make
But hold
plans.
on, would the mom be okay with that?
I think she would, an announcement like that at a game would be appropriate.
Dedicating the game,
Yeah,
this
it
way,
would be
it's a
appropriate.
reminder to the kids
That,
what can happen
right.
Right.
at football.
What, the only thing I wanted to add, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't want to concentrate so much on the tragedy of
Right.
what happened, but on how, after it happened, he gave back to the community so much, monetarily, money-wise, and he served on this rec board. He served on the rec board. David, in his wheelchair, served on the board of directors at the Y. He graduated college. His life after the accident was something to be really remembered. And, yeah.
No, and I think that's what, you know, not that it was a tragic event, but that he,
Right.
you know, again, putting things in perspective of some things that have occurred over the years, even just like they recognized David Robinson this year and his contributions as a former high school, Morristown High School football player.
Right.
And that was, I think, along the lines of what Coach Sherry was thinking. They were going to combine that with the night that they do something with the Youth Football Association at the game.
May I also, I owe the football team an apology. This is my personal feeling.
Yes.
I mean, I watch it on TV and think that no one should play football, you know? So this is me personally, and please, I don't mean to upset the football team.
But how about if...
I just, we do have other stuff we want to get to, and not that this isn't important, but I think we're all in agreement that, I think the motion is that we would, our recommendation to council is that David be remembered in some capacity, and council can decide if that is a full park, or if that is a part of a park. We would certainly support any sort of recognition at a future high school football game in conjunction with the football club, the Morristown Youth Football Association, and the high school team. That would be the first motion, is that we support a recognizing and remembering in some capacity. So are we all,
I definitely...
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely.
All in
That's
favor?
fine.
aye, those opposed? The second motion that I would make is that council does something in the near future to set criteria.
The
final. If not, something maybe is lined up through, there was a request to serve that was already submitted that we would consider. I hope to have an answer to all your questions, other than with regard to Sue only by the next meeting, the next council meeting. This Monday coming up, we're hoping to discuss it, and then by the next meeting, we should know what's happening in the steps.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We never got a list when we joined this of what our responsibilities or criteria are. Is there any list, like, how many meetings you get this?
I know, Scott, I know there is a code of conduct, so to speak. I'll ask Scott to forward it maybe to you, Teresa, to pass out as far as what's expected of committee members. And
But is it like functional, like you need to attend so many meetings?
I believe you have to attend at least half, otherwise you can be asked to leave. You'll be asked to, to submit resignation. And it's only fair, there is a long line of people that want to serve on the committee. As far as attendance goes, that's, go ahead with the next question.
Well, it was more like, one of the things Sue's issue was, we didn't know, we didn't even understand these are kind of like open, I mean, it doesn't matter, like open meetings, closed meetings, like, I just want like maybe a training
Well, the
for those of us
open
who are
meeting
advisors.
yeah, that's a good idea. Open meeting is a term of art. Open meeting, a council meeting falls under the Open Public Meeting Act, which means that everything we do has to be noticed and it has to be done in public with open doors. There's some conjecture, that's because we can vote on expenditures and policy and law. There's some conjecture whether this qualifies under an open public meeting or not. And until that's resolved, we're assuming it's an open meeting and everyone can attend and do what they wish. And so that hasn't been determined yet, and I don't know if we're ever going to get that, go down the road or not.
Okay, thank you. The last piece that I have on the chairman's report is the piece I just handed out. It's the Summer of Arts, or free music on Main Street concerts. It's this whole arts season that is we've talked about it in previous meetings. This is the poster that is going to be made by the Morristown Business Association, the Department of Parks and Recreation, the Community House, as we come together. As you see, this will be large. This will not be this small. It'll go in all the businesses, hopefully on Main Street and all around. And as you can see, there's a lot going on in our town during the summer. So for all the people that say that our town is quiet in the summer and everybody leaves, they're obviously not everybody's leaving, because there's a lot of musicals and shows and concerts and movies and all kinds of things happening. So spread the word.
And this year we all worked together.
Yep.
It was Morristown Theater Company, Morristown Business Association,
More Arts.
Community House, the Recreation Department. So we all sat down and came up with this. And the high school teams who are in the special needs classes are going to be sorting the posters and delivering them to the two storefronts.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. They're involved also.
So, just wanted you to see what this looks like. It's probably going to go to press next week, or to print next week, and then.
There is one concert, as you'll see, on Perkins, and that's because it's a 40-piece orchestra, and they can't fit a stage on the. So that's going to Perkins Center, but all the other four are. And if you want to know by every other week, it's just because there's so many things going on, role plays and things like that. So, in fairness to all the More Arts and Morristown Theater Company who are putting on shows in town, we didn't want to conflict with any of their shows, so we're trying to work the schedule together.
Director's report, Teresa.
Okay. We have a special needs update.
Yeah,
Darlene, if you
Al-
could give on the basketball
It was
clinic.
wonderful. Al Cantola and more kids did our basketball clinic. We had about 60 individuals attending. It was another stellar performance by Al Group and Morgan.
Each month or every 6 weeks when we have one of these special events, we have more and more kids participating from all over. Our next event will be run by Michael Altschuler, Darlene's son, who is doing this as part of his Eagle Scout project, and he's putting on a baseball clinic at Philadelphia Park.
And that is getting in the Burlington County Times. One of the parents who was at the basketball clinic has a son with autism, and she took a in the spot. So it'll be in the May 15th spot for the basketball clinic. And then she's trying to get the open gym in, or anything else that you want.
We also started a Saturday morning open gym for our special needs population with their friends and families and siblings and whoever they want to bring. And that's going very well right now.
It has some kinks though that have to be.
Right, we're working those out. It's just had our second week, and so.
But you know, one thing I was going to just make a thing on what we might want to watch with all of our special needs updates, and it's nothing from any of our events, but here at the Philadelphia Zoo Autism Awareness Day, it was really bad. And we actually thought somebody, it looked like a few people were getting hurt. So one thing, it looked like when I was talking to some of the parents, we're sitting down saying, what could they have done better? Making sure that we had like a sensory quiet area available. Making sure in the zoo, the lines were long, we had an hour wait, children got very, very agitated. And we have to make sure that the staff who's going to be at these events is trained and knows what to expect. James, what's his last name, Hilton, is phenomenal. He set up that rack for the open gym. It was great. It took into account sound sensibility by pushing the curtain closed, so we had the baskets here. It wasn't affecting the children over here. But he won't be there this Saturday. He's off. We just want to make sure that the staff that comes in knows what to do, that they have the keys. It's just the consistency.
And
When parents
the
come,
small office is our sensory room.
right, as long as they can get in there, he's had it set with cushions and mats, which would be great. Remember, the kid's getting a little agitated, apparently, you can help Ted, right?
No.
They need a spot.
Just to bring it down.
And when you have all the little preschoolers going for their ballet, and our guys are getting agitated, especially with the sound, we need that area. So, if you, I can talk to whoever you have coming on Saturday. Or he said, I don't know, however you want to do it, but just making sure whoever's there kind of is a little bit more aware of the population.
And Teresa, in a very positive way, being a teacher, teaching this population, a lot of positive comments from parents that we've been having our annual reviews and stuff, talking about the commitment that the township is doing. And people seem to be really getting excited. I mean, Kate McCarthy is just, she's an magnet. People,
She's our site
like-
supervisor for the summer
Yeah.
period. We already have 6 children signed up for the summer special needs camp. We did receive $3,000 from the Morristown Education Foundation, again this summer, for the camp. I received an email today from a $600 commitment from Bayonne. We received $100 from Quaker Wealth Management. And tomorrow I'm meeting with Wells Fargo. So we'll see what we're doing. So we're bringing in some funding, and our camps and our different events are becoming well known. Begley Law Group, as you know, donated $2,500, and we offered social skills classes, which was like a subsidy, so it reduced the cost. Now the parents are asking for handwriting classes, and these are with the therapists. So the remainder of the Begley money is going to subsidize that program. So those kind of programs are happening. So we're very excited. Also, you know that Sean Fischel Foundation donated $7,500 to the Recreation Department. And what that's going to take care of is we're going to get Wi-Fi up here, and they're going to pay the monthly fee. And then this will be, you'll have Wi-Fi if you want to come up, teenagers, when we have our open gym. They're going to pay for all the soccer T-shirts for this fall in memory of Sean, from K to 8 for our soccer leagues, K to 8, and they're paying for all the special needs arts and crafts this summer in our camp. So, yeah, it is really, really good stuff. So, and they're going to have their next big fundraiser again in the fall where they have that walk, and that's where they raise their money. They have one big fundraiser a year. So our spring programs we're in the midst of all our spring programs. We're doing very well. Our programs are growing. If you saw today in the Burlington County Times, I think I sent it all to you. We had a big write-up on pickleball. So that was pretty exciting, and people want us to expand that now. So we're going to probably expand it for a day on the weekend, or at least a couple hours on the weekend, so other people can make it. But it's a very fun sport, very serious sport, especially for an 86-year-old woman called us today in the office and said she It's all levels, all abilities, and all ages. So our spring programs are in full force. Everything's been moved outside. Keith's and Rich's program on Tuesday and Thursday mornings is now on the turf. So if anyone wants a boot camp, that's Tuesday and Thursday mornings for a very nominal fee. Our summer programs are underway, but before I mention those, I want to tell you that Memorial Day, we will have our ceremony. Once again, it's our 28th annual Memorial Day ceremony at Memorial Field. Judy Young, mother of Jeff Young, has been assisting us in organizing the event, and this is going to be dedicated to the Civil War. It's the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. Apparently there were 3 men in Morristown in the Civil War, so.
I'm guessing they're not going to be at the,
I don't think they're going to be there. So that's going to be at 10 o'clock. Once again, we have the Morristown High School Band, led by Chris Norris. So it's all set. We haven't gone to print yet, but we will be going to print by Friday. So Memorial Day. 10 a.m., rain or shine. And that's at Memorial Field. Summer programs. We have, once again, our parks programs going to be held at our camps at Baker, South Valley, Roberts, and New Albany. We once again have our theater camp going at Wams. Everyone has been hired. We put everyone through an interview process who applies. We also developed a counselor and training program several years ago for ages 13, 14, 15. And we also put those individuals through an application process. And, we have a lot of great employees. So, we also have our special needs camp, as I mentioned to you. We started a new program this summer. It's going to be for 4-year-olds, and it's called Forest Fun. So we're going to be using this room in the gymnasium, and that's going to be Monday through Thursdays for the summer. And then we have a variety of different sports teams. Our Burlington County grant is due June 13th, and we were going to submit it for the Rink 1 in Wesley Bishop Park, Rink 1. So that's the hockey rink, and that's due the 13th. And then the Jeff Young Park hockey rink, I just wanted to let you know that we did put that in. That recommendation was put in the budget through the manager's office, and that's in the capital budget. And what that would do is that would demo the boards all around the rink, and that would put up like a new chain link fence with about a 10-inch board around the side for hockey, which will really be nice. A lot of rinks that are this way in neighborhood parks, and it cuts down vandalism also. So very good for security.
Is there a date for demolition?
No, we have to get the bond ordinance first. So once the bond ordinance is set, then we'll go forward. Morristown Day, the rec department's going to have a table this year from 9 to 4. So this way, when parents are walking by and want to sign or register their child, or adult wants to sign up for a program, we're there. So they don't have to come here or go online or whatever. If anyone wants to volunteer, a half hour, an hour, let me know. 9 to 4. And we're right next to her. We're right with More Arts and Live Civilly. Live Civilly will be back this summer. The first Saturday, 9 to 4. Live Civilly will be back this summer making and providing lunches for children who have requested it. Last year they did over 1,500 lunches for our summer program and delivered them. 1,500. So, and that includes a morning snack and a drink and provides a full lunch. So that's Live Civilly. The grants I mentioned, the hockey rink update. Are there any questions? Our mowing, Brickman, we do a shared service agreement with the schools, and we mow Prior Park and Wesley Bishop, north and south, along with Memorial Field, the huge soccer field, and the lower soccer field. So that's going, and then all our fields have been prepared for the sports, baseball, lacrosse, etc. And we have all our coring or aerating, fertilizing, seeding going on, beginning of spring, late spring, and fall. turf field, we have, all the repairs have been completed on the Wesley Bishop turf field number 1, which was the older field. We had a GMAX test taken last fall, and based on those results, repairs have just been completed as of last week. And the GMAX tests have been taken of the new prior baseball fields, and everything is fine. Okay. Any questions so far before I continue? Also,
The last year's grant, did we put in for the grant for Memorial Field for
Yes.
track and it didn't
yes,
get it?
yes, we received 125,000.
Was there work done there?
No, we're starting all the process
Okay,
now.
okay.
That's in,
I
that's
thought
all.
I heard we got it, I just wasn't
Yeah.
sure.
We did.
Got it
Construction's
back.
gonna start, I think, pretty soon.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Right.
meetings are gonna be starting for
Yep.
Memorial Field, put in the track,
New track and drainage.
drainage.
The other one is, and it's not Strawbridge Lake as a whole, and it's a whole different animal, it doesn't fall necessarily under the rec department, but if maybe somebody from Public Works could make their way, there's all the trash cans from the long winter and all the hockey that was played on there, and there's trash cans sort of floating in the lake and off onto the side, and there's some things. The kids put it out there to play ice hockey. It's not that it was a big deal, but I think yeah, exactly. And it melted, and now they're sort of floating
I'll
and
send Scott
hanging.
a text right now.
So,
Okay. As you know, we receive a lot of young boys that come into the office for Eagle Scout projects. So, as in anything else, we decided we would start some criteria. So, what we've done is we came up with an application, and I'll pass this around. But one of the things that we did put on here is Recreation Advisory Committee. So we will have a date on here of when they will come here with their proposal before anything's approved. So the one Eagle Scout project that just recently came in, they want to paint the other portions of New Albany, the other 2 rooms. So that's one of the thoughts that they have. So we'll see. So here's just an application process that we have for the Eagle Scout projects. And there's quite a few that come in, and they're all wonderful.
Question, have you come up with, remember at one point, I think a few months ago, we talked about having a list of activities that you would like done to
Right.
be able to have. Have you
Yeah,
done that?
we're still in the process. That's not firmed up yet. So
Yeah,
when they
yeah,
come
right,
to
yeah.
our,
Yeah, you could say,
when they
oh,
come-
if you're not sure, how about?
well, we've been doing it, that's what we've been doing right now, but we don't have it in writing. Like last year, a young boy did the Strawbridge Lake play area, and he sanded
Oh,
and
one of
repaired
the benches, right.
all the picnic tables. It was fabulous. Those tables were old,
Oh, yeah.
and they're beautiful now.
Well, we know now that the Scouts have been accepted, and I found that they're also with special needs. The Scouts, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts will do, they can get their ambassador, and they can get their Eagle Scout for a special needs activity. Is that true?
We have a list of criteria to say that as long as you meet all these criteria.
For that application? Well, when they come in with their book, and their troop leader has to sign off on it. So,
I guess what happens if we say no? How do you set that criteria if it says, okay, this is where we.
well, it's not so
they
much
don't
we
need
would ever
approval.
say, we wouldn't really ever say no for Eagle Scout project. We might say no to a certain project, but
But I guess that's what I'm saying,
Yeah, like how
you
do you-
can
how do you
put yourself in the
only
corner if you
mold-
don't set
don't
criteria.
want criteria.
We
Yeah.
should set criteria for the town that as long as it meets these, no, it's not a safety hazard, things like that,
Mhm.
then yes, we'll set the proposal. So that it's.
Well, we want them to complete this form, and we want them to present it to us first. And then
That's his question.
it's a board
I
discussion.
guess that's something that we should do then. is
Set a criteria.
Well, I think that becomes challenging, maybe Tom's about to say the same thing. We all thought the dog park was gonna be a great idea, and then once you start going down that path, all of a sudden, things pop up that none of us probably anticipated and stuff, because we all thought it was a wonderful idea. We went out, we looked at every park, and then at the end of the day, it just unfortunately wasn't feasible. And so unfortunately, that one wasn't accepted, even though we all thought it was. So I think setting that up front to say, if you do all this, you'll get it, I think still set us up for.
Here's a question, why was the dog park?
feasibility, it wasn't the right project at the right time. There were too many dynamics, that were at play. That it wasn't hit a certain time frame. When they do the Eagle Scout project, a certain time frame has to be accomplished. And the project and the concept was going to require more input and time. And at a time when we're building town hall and the library and a lot of other things were on the plate, it wasn't like everybody could stop and just focus on this one thing. And it was complicated, it had more moving parts than we originally considered. I would say two things to that. One is, I would make a recommendation with a policy that the initial idea for an Eagle Scout project, if it involves the town, should first be reviewed by Scott Carew to see if there are logistical issues that he may find in the concept. And then it can be presented to the committee, and then we can make a recommendation to council after that regarding, to move forward with it. But I think Scott's input, because because, for example, the dog park stuff, like he may have seen 4 or 5 things with that, but he would have raised questions that would have brought a stop sign up. We're not full-time engaged in the management of the municipality and the issues involved in managing municipalities as he is. Exactly, and all the factors. And he may even have points of consideration, notes that he wants to give us to consider based upon his understanding of what's being discussed. So things that we want to ask the candidate that we want to resolve before it goes to council. The other thing.
Why does it have to go to council? Michael's did it.
By the way, you're right. You're right. It does depend on the project.
Yeah.
And it depends on if
We
there's...
don't want every project.
No, it depends on if there's municipal resources that are required or something like that. For example, the dog park requires some municipal resources.
The butterfly garden would be one, but
But no, and here's the other thing that I was going to suggest. No, and here's the other thing that I was going to suggest is, I'm sorry, was that if we could have a running list of potential suggestions.
That's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to, that's what we're formulating.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry. No.
See, originally, the young boy came in and asked if he could build picnic tables for Strawbridge Lake. And I knew that wasn't gonna be feasible. So I said, let's clean up what we have.
Win-win. He was running a little low.
It was a win-win. That's an easier example,
Because, the typical 16, 17-year-old is very ambitious. They're getting to their Eagle Scout project. But I think our part in the process should be to temper and make realistic that enthusiasm.
And the Girl Scouts have the equivalent, which is the ambassadors.
Okay, great. Anything else, Teresa?
No, I think that the fields are in good shape. Well, one thing I did want to mention is that we now have ultimate frisbee on the turf on Sunday nights for 7th grade through whatever age. And it's really going over well. So we're continuing it all summer long. Sunday nights, ultimate frisbee, and badminton. So those are the 3 big new activities that getting a lot of attention from a lot of people in town and out of town. So please join us. And men's basketball, we're back with our Sunday morning men's basketball, but it's open to everyone with a fee. And also we have Thursday nights, and that's going over really well too.
Teresa, that I noticed after our last time together here, that would be great if we publicized it, because I think it's a unique program, is the badminton program. Because I think that's a unique, I'll bet you the overwhelming majority of this town is not aware of that. And it is a phenomenal cardio aerobic exercise that's low impact.
And it's very quiet.
Yes.
There's no reps.
So I think
it's peaceful.
I really think we should highlight that.
Well, we did put a page in, hopefully everyone saw, we put a whole page in the Sun of all our activities.
Yes.
We put an entire page in, and now for the next couple weeks, you will see a smaller ad of the same thing.
Yeah.
Listing summer programs, fall programs, that type of thing. We're trying to push that badminton, Tom. We're putting articles out there, and press releases out there.
Yeah.
Do robocall. Do robocall for fairly cheap on a resident in town.
That's true.
I don't get much from the rec, I get from the music conservatory, they just said something from Perkins. You know, the thing that.
Rec info?
Mhm.
Rec info, we send that out. About once a week.
Right, but I don't usually, I didn't see the badminton or anything on it.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying, how many families does that go to?
Oh, our whole database.
How big is that?
Depends how many people are registered. So I'd have to go back and check. We send
Is
it
it like
out.
over 1,000?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I had one other item related to the parks. Wesley Bishop softball field #1. I think one of two things, and probably the second, is going to be the preferred route because it's going to be more feasible and less expensive. The travel softball teams primarily use those fields, and the high school just had a game there last Friday night. The whole parking area, when you first pull in, your car has about an 80% chance of getting shelved if you park there. The experienced, and almost all the games are played from out-of-town people who don't realize, and pull in and go, wow, look at this great spot, I'm right up front, right next to the field. So there either has to be some netting that prevents the foul balls from going there, which is probably somewhat prohibitive, or there should be some signage that says park at your risk because of foul balls. Because we had Haddon Township with a huge crowd Friday night. We had MYSA night, and Morristown's varsity softball team played Haddon Township, and the Morristown people knew to park from right field down, past the batting cages over to the hockey rinks, and the Haddon Township people thought we were just being so polite, and we're parking up. Yeah, so yes, it was funny until a couple cars got hit, and then they moved their cars away, and the new guy pulling in the lot would make the mistake. So either some signage, which I guess is the simple way if we could, just saying risk for foul balls, park at your own risk from the softball field, or the better solution could be if we have some netting, but I'm sure that's budget prohibitive.
Okay, moving on. Any old business? The only old business I have, we talked about this 2 meetings ago, and we talk about it every year, multiple times, is the excessive trash at the parks, at the fields. This past Saturday morning, when we showed up for our boot camp, it was probably the worst I've seen it in a long time. And of course, I took pictures of it. It was all the trash was right by the benches, which are right in front of the trash cans. So there's just huge piles of trash. There's a trash can right there.
Is it bottles?
Water bottles, it's all kinds of stuff. It's tape, it's
We're looking into recycle only
I don't
bins.
think it matters. I think the bin is there. It was probably as close as you and I are, and they're just leaving them all over the floor, all over the turf. So my group cleaned up the entire turf field. I wanted to go back. I got tied up, and I couldn't go back to take pictures later that night to see exactly what it looked like. But I know Debbie Flick had said the same thing to me, that she's had her team, she's had to tell a bunch of boys teams, lacrosse teams, to pick up their stuff. Everybody's just walking away. In fact, the visitors' bench was completely clean. The Morristown bench was completely trashed.
Did they abuse there Friday night?
I'm not sure what it was. I don't know what was on Friday
Yeah,
night.
that's what.
And I don't know if it was a pileup from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday practice. It could have been it's still an issue. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not looking for us to solve it tonight, but I think it's just something we need to continue to monitor. And
Well, I'll start Peru bring up in the workshop.
Okay.
maybe not at this meeting coming up on Monday, the following meeting, how much I can get on the
We
agenda.
send out constant emails to the different clubs, and I know that they clean up, and they do have kids that clean up, you know,
I mean, we have to
but there's so
institute
many.
a fine system, but, you know.
You know, the other thing too, we tried various signs, and I know at one point we prohibited, but maybe the sign that might work is on the exit, when you're exiting the field at the gates, coaches, make sure your players have cleaned up before you leave the field. I'm sorry? Or your fees will go up. Yeah, there you go. You know, or you may be subject to fine. Yeah.
Well, is there a fine, there's not a fine in place yet, so we have to make sure we have it in
Yeah,
place.
it's something, I think we
It,
need to.
it couldn't be that trash was put in the trash can and someone turned the trash can
No.
upside down.
It's covered, it's a covered can with the whole, I mean, it
I
was.
mean, it's been my
Was the can
experience
full?
with looking
No.
at teams and stuff
They
that
put new cans out there this year.
people don't, they don't, the
12 more.
coaches don't get after the kids leave after the games,
Yeah.
and they walk, I mean, that's been my own experience looking. I'm normally saying to people, pick up, don't leave your bottle, don't, you know, but that's, now, it hasn't this year, I don't have anyone playing this year, but that's been my experience, that they don't get on the kids, and the kids just leave, and they leave everything right where they are. And, but you see the adults too, in the stands, leaving their things, right?
Yeah. I am a proponent, I do think council's on point. I do think the colored recycling buckets are more eye-catching and hopefully more, do get more use than, you know, the cans are, they almost look like part of the fencing that we currently have there. So I'm hoping that
They're
that.
changed.
I'm sorry?
They're the big green ones now with the covered tops.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
No,
they're
it
all
just sort of-
branded.
It's a mentality, it's a mentality that needs to be,
Yeah, mentality.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
Maybe we
it's,
need to.
Yeah. So we can maybe, it's something to bring up at the next meeting,
Yeah,
but, and.
Or,
maybe
or
look
set
at-
up a fine system
Or
and let
set
the
an
clubs know.
ordinance. Yeah.
And let the clubs know. Guess what, your user fees are gonna go up if we continue to have this
because
problem.
we have to get someone to clean up,
Because, you know,
keep something, keep doing.
That's right. Anything else for old business? Okay, new business? I have one thing for new business as well, because this just came in probably around 6:30. You probably haven't even seen your email yet. It was sent to you and Stockaroo, and I was copied on it, as well as Misha, Ken Carlton, but a resident in town, Paul Gilhool, who is very active in the lacrosse club, is looking to start a new club, Morristown Box Lacrosse Club, to run it similar to street hockey and flag football. So it'd be more of a rec style program where it's kids from town playing against each other. They have gone and spoken to Ken Carlton, who's the president of Morristown Youth Street Hockey Association, about utilizing those rinks. It would not interfere with street hockey. Street Hockey Association is in full support. It would not interfere, it would be a different time. It would not provide, if there were any damage at all, their club would repair any damage. They're looking to financially support it and support any upkeep of those rinks. They've also reached out to the lacrosse club just to speak to any, they've engaged them already. They don't necessarily have their full endorsement, but it's, the club is aware of this initiative to move forward. So it was sent to you, I was copied on it. But it seems like they've sort of done their homework and gone to the right folks. I'm guessing at some point they're gonna come to the township and to Rec Advisory to ask for support as a new club in town and be able to be set up similar to those organizations. And I'm guessing that's from a fee standpoint on utilization of
When would
those.
that be completed?
I don't know the exact dates, I'm not sure. I read the email, I didn't know if there was attachments, but they've already talked, it would not be the same season as street hockey. So it would be different and they would take care of,
It's interesting.
so, and again, it would be,
Not winter or
yeah, it would be a winter, but it would be
after their,
after or
If they're
before.
like
Yeah,
December through January.
Yeah, it would be
And then
after.
there's that window until around June.
Exactly. I
yeah,
think
there's
that's
that window from March to June.
before regular lacrosse starts, and so I guess there's a movement. I'm not completely
Is that 3 on,
engaged.
is that 3 on
I think it's 4-on-4,
Four on
Oh,
small,
5-on-5 now?
maybe 5-on-5 in there. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just guessing off.
Okay.
But he's very passionate about lacrosse. He's involved in Great Park and some of the people that are holding camps in town as well, so some of you may know. But I just wanted to say it's something that could be coming on our plate moving forward.
More opportunities.
Yep. Yeah.
During downtime.
Last but not least, any citizens' concerns? And it looks like Jack is here.
I guess I just had a quick question for the Jeff Young Field.
Yes.
The demolition for that, is that something that's a cost that goes out to bid, or, you know, it's a cost of the rec, or council for that, or the township?
It would just be the boards around. It would just be the boards.
Okay, so
not
not
the
removing the whole,
Oh, no, just the boards that are there. at
okay,
present.
and replacing that. So
Yes.
does that go out for bid?
Yeah.
That's something that we do in-house?
Right.
Okay, now I was just seeing if maybe I could offer some assistance with help to that, if it was a cost to us, that's all.
Great.
The only other question I had was the basketball court was removed in Fullerton Park. We named
Yes.
so many parks, I
Yes, Fullerton Park.
thinking of them all.
Yes.
Fullerton Park, they were removed, and I showed some interest, or at least support, if we were interested in putting them back in any way, or is there any plans or anything, you know, before I start moving in that direction, because I do have some assistance with the starts of it, but I guess I wanted to know what your opinion was, or if there was any opinion from the board.
Well, they were removed because of the surface.
The surface, correct?
Right, and so that would have to have a study done on that surface before we would put up another
Yeah.
court.
Let me start by, first of all, yes, I want basketball courts back in Fullerton. So that's just my personal opinion, has nothing to do with I'm not speaking on behalf of Rec Advisory. Personally, I would love to see basketball courts back in Fullerton. I think it's missing something at that park now.
Well, there was a
That's
court
not
there.
there. And there was a court there, but only because I was involved with Fullerton, with the redoing of the playground, and when we did that, we looked at renovating the entire park. We had, Ken, yours had folks come out and do a test on that area, of what the cost would be to do it the right way. Yes, they could continue to just pave over it, but the issue isn't just the surface, the issue is way below. And I think, Jackie, and I talked about it at Rotary.
We did.
It was a $300,000 investment to rip, and it's not just, it would be the tennis courts. The tennis courts, yes, 95% of the tennis courts are okay. There are still some dip areas in the corners, but to rip everything out and backfill it the right way and stamp it and do it and make sure that those sinkholes won't come back was a $300,000 project.
And that was then.
That was then. That was 5 years ago,
Right.
5 years ago. So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe construction costs have come down, things have come down, or maybe they've
Well,
gone, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what,
But I would definitely support it as a resident, as somebody that grew up down the street. I'm more than happy to help, or at least figure out where there could possibly be a court placed at that park. Maybe it's not right there, although the lights are there. Maybe there's a way, maybe we can be creative and figure out a way to get it back. But it was done not just because of the surface itself, but because of what's underneath.
that's right.
And it was dangerous.
And that's,
Unfortunately,
No,
I played there growing up.
I agree with you, and we don't need any more,
Right.
accidents or anything like that. So I completely understand that, and that's what my question was. I mean, if we could find a way to cut the cost down, or even maybe get the support of the community for the cost, to bring it back, maybe, I'm just thinking, I'm poking around in that direction.
I would keep poking,
Okay.
seriously.
All right.
I mean, that's how Fullerton got redone.
Okay.
I mean, that's how a lot of things are getting redone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's residents.
I have
that
two
step up and
contractors
say-
that I have a good rapport with, and I'm working with them right now. And I just want to know that it's okay if I go in that direction
I would just,
with,
my only caution to you is, I would make sure, whatever, talk to Scott Carew through
Mhm.
this process, because
absolutely.
as we all know, there are, things have to go out to bid, there are
Right.
over certain thresholds,
Mhm.
It
and
has to be engineered.
it has to be engineered, there's
Yeah.
things that have to be done. So
Right.
it can be done, I don't think it's something that's unreasonable and that can't get accomplished. But I think you need to engage Scott, which is what we did with Fullerton. We engaged not only Teresa, obviously the rec department supported, but it was engaging Chris Schultz and Kenny and
everybody.
Tom Ford and all those guys.
You have to make a formal pitch to council
Right.
and get them on board with it.
And here's how much we're gonna raise, here's how much it's gonna cost.
Sell it all out.
Okay,
And,
Yeah.
that's fine, and maybe I could CC you guys,
Yeah.
and you could pass the information to the
Sure.
others,
Yep.
and then we'll go from
I
there.
think I would love to see it back
Just send me.
Yeah, I would
send
too.
it-
I'm not saying, I mean, listen, you know, I agree with what you said, the cost was outrageous and it was very difficult to get that. So, you know, I'm not saying that I can create a miracle because, you know, I'm sure costs don't go down. But if I can get some help, maybe we can make it happen.
Yeah, send a proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
We'll go from there.
Yes, Fred. For the test?
Thank you.
Sure. The sinkholes went pretty deep. Again, I don't, Ken yours has the total history of that area, and previous to Fullerton Park being there was a business that was there, and I think that's when the building was removed and they sort of built that up, they didn't really backfill it and do what they needed to do. They sort of just put it on land there. And again, Kenny has the full historical timeline of how that all happened, and that's why the sinkholes keep happening, because they, you know,
You
it's-
have to actually backfill it and use, I'm using it.
yeah,
You have to use a thing to pound it down, which would be a town hall.
right.
It's
And
a
back
rapid
again,
action,
and
and
then,
we bring it.
Any other citizens' concerns?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much. All right, without anything else for the good of the town and our committee? Yes, Fred?
Just so you know, the videotape has well over 300 views on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah. Compared to
I looked at it, so that,
Yeah.
Sorry, don't be shy.
I had to go all over and try to figure out where it was, but then I saw it.
Well, like Chris
That's
said,
why
I
I'm
think
saying
there could
sit
be,
here and it's back in my head.
there will be some sort of resolution in the coming month or so regarding, you know, just final say is yes, it's going to continue to happen, but I think everything that we're doing is good stuff, and the town should know about it. So, all right, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second, all in favor? Aye. Everybody have a wonderful evening.